They're two happy women bringing you inspiring stories, politics, pop culture, and lifestyle hacks, all with an eye to making our communities and our country a better place to live. It's the Happy Women Podcast with your hosts, Jen Horn and Katie Gorka.
Thanks for joining us and welcome to another episode of the Happy Women Podcast. I'm Jennifer Horn.
And I'm Katie Gorka.
And boy, we have lots to go through today. You know what? It is one of those times of year when you think things slow down, but we're all operating at the speed of Trump right now. So things are not slowing down. We have lots of news to follow. And I think we have to start with arguably the biggest news story probably of the last couple of weeks. And that, Katie Gorka, is the drones.
Drones. Yes.
Now,
it is crazy what's happening with the drones.
So I was just looking at a report in the Daily Mail. Say what you will. They're always fun for these kinds of stories. They said that the FBI has had over 5,000 reports of drones on the East Coast, just most specifically over the last 2 weeks. Now, 100 of them, they say, are credible threats. The Biden administration went from saying, Alejandro Mayorkas literally said, what drones on Friday of last week. Then by Sunday, he said a lot of people are seeing things, but they aren't really giving us the story. They just keep telling us that it's not a national security threat. Well, if it's not a national security threat, then just what in the heck is it? I've said it's got to be four things. I mean, if you're thinking about plausible stuff, right? The first one would be space aliens. Maybe. I mean, it could be. It could be the aliens. They're here. Number two, it could be a private company that is working on delivery or their technology. Number three, it could be our government, our military. And then number four, as I can best assess, it could be some other foreign government, some other entity, somebody who's maybe here for nefarious reasons. We've heard maybe it's Iran off the coast. That's what Jeff Van Drew said. People have said Russia or China might have these capabilities. Katie, I think that it is not the aliens. And I love a conspiracy theory. Like, I love talking about the possibility of this. It just doesn't feel like that to me. Could be wrong. And if I am, take me to your leader. I don't believe that it's a private company because I think they are now going to risk having people shoot down their very expensive equipment. So if it was a private company, maybe they would have already divulged that it's them. I don't think it's a foreign government. Even though Joe Biden's still in the White House, you can't imagine that we'd celebrate China and Russia or Iran flying over us. And if so, that those countries wouldn't brag about owning our airspace. So I think your only likely scenario is that it's probably something being done by our government. But the question is, what is being done by our government if that really is the case?
Well, here for me is the evidence that you are right in thinking that it's our government. And one thing is the fact that everybody in the left-wing media is parroting the same line, which is there's nothing to see here. There's nothing going on. And we know this is a longstanding tradition. When the government wants to get the word out about something, everybody says the same thing. So that's a concern for me right there. I think also the fact that John Kirby, who works for the Biden administration, came out with his really milquetoast statement was so deliberately ambiguous. He said, our assessment is that this is lawful, legal, commercial, hobbyist, and even law enforcement aircraft activity. Okay, well, which is it? And the thing that makes me not believe that it does have a legitimate aim like law enforcement or whatever is there have been so many closures or interruptions to business. For example, the fact that the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio had to close their airspace for a few hours due to drone sightings. The little airport up in Hudson, New York had to close down for a few hours. Trump put off his visit to Bedminster because there were too many drones going on up there. And there have also been drones near the Naval Weapons Station, Earl, in New Jersey. The other thing that makes me really suspicious, and, maybe this is just circumstantial, but there have been a couple of interesting arrests lately that seem to be tied into this story. So just this Saturday, 2 men were arrested in Boston for flying drones too close to Logan Airport. And then in California last week on December 10th, a Chinese citizen was arrested for operating a drone and taking photos of Vandenberg Air Force Base in Santa Barbara County. So there's a lot going on here that makes me suspicious.
By the way, with your Chinese national and the story with Vandenberg Air Force Base, do you know 2 weeks ago, another Chinese national was actually arrested for sending weapons, ammunition, and explosive material in shipping containers to North Korea on the behest of China. So there's a lot of weird stuff that's happening in California right now when it comes to people here that are not supposed to be here doing some pretty nefarious things. So that's just a little add-on because it's bizarre.
Wait, are you saying that shipment, you said it was going to North Korea, but did it originate here?
Yes, he was packing them up. He was putting together ammunition. He was putting together weapons, building explosives, sending material to North Korea from California. He was using the Long Beach shipping port to send containers to North Korea. And it wasn't the first one when they caught him. So there's a lot of weird stuff that's been happening. I also, in California, we had Temecula, which is a up and coming wine growing region in the Inland Empire. There was a group of men who caught a bunch of drones flying over that area. And so then we thought, oh boy, are the drones coming? And my friend, the police chief or the sheriff in Riverside County, Chad Bianco, came out and said, no, that was actually Southern California Edison doing fire control. So what I think is happening here is there are legitimately drones that are large, that are too big to be just hobbyist drones, that are flying higher than ever. But now people are curious and looking up to the skies. And I think probably in many cases they are seeing people who are just fooling around with drones or private companies who are testing those out. But I don't think that takes away from the idea that there are still big drones up there that have been identified by people flying at night. One of the stories, and there's actually a few, one of the stories in conservative Twitter this weekend, if you were on there, you saw them talking about this project, this PSYOP, basically trying to scare people that the aliens are coming. Well, if that's the case, they're doing a really poor job of it because it doesn't seem like anybody's panicking about aliens coming. So I don't know how much I believe in that, but you've had Roseanne Barr and you've had Elon Musk even kind of dip his toe into that theory. That's one of them out there. Then there is a man who used to run a drone company that had military contracts that says that there is some kind of bomb, dirty bomb, something that would have radioactive material somewhere near New Jersey that they think might be there. And obviously, because of its proximity to New York City and the damage that something like that could do, these government drones are searching the area for trying to get some sort of radioactive footprint. Now, that's been debunked by some people saying that that's not what drone technology can really do. But those are just some of the ideas that people are floating around out there. Who knows? And I think the problem is even President Trump, when he gave a great press conference this week, was asked about the drones. And he basically said that it's our government knows what's going on. They need to tell us. And then when he said, when they asked him if he had a security briefing, he said no comment, which to me tells me he had a security briefing, kind of gave us the information that the Biden administration knows what it is and hoped to nudge them in the direction of being more transparent. But good luck with that, because this administration has been transparent about absolutely nothing.
Yeah, he said very definitively, our government knows what the drones are doing. He said, I called on the Pentagon to tell the truth to the American people. They need to do it fast. I thought that was super interesting. And I just want to say, I think there's another piece of this that we have to acknowledge, which is that the jihadist threat is heating up again. We've got this whole story happening in Syria where you've got so-called rebels led by an Islamist named al-Jawlani has taken over Damascus. So, and you've now got Turkey starting to attack the Kurds along the northern border of Syria, where we have U.S. troops stationed. I think thanks to Trump, who managed to really put the lid on the ISIS threat very quickly in his administration, we are now seeing it boiling over again. And we know for a fact that there are many, many people from terrorist watch lists, many people with jihadist ties who have managed to come across our southern border, our porous, open door southern border. Yeah. And so the idea that we have a domestic threat here is by no means outrageous or
It's
out
not.
of the realm of possibility. And so I have to say, you know, I think it's very concerning. And the Biden administration is not doing anybody any favors by trying to sort of, you know, throw a veil over this and make it seem like, oh, you're all crazy to think that there's something going on.
It's the only thing they know how to do, though. For the last 4 years, all they've done is gaslight people and tell them, nope, you're not seeing what you're really seeing. You're not seeing grocery prices go up or gas prices go up. You're not hearing the reports that maybe the COVID vaccine wasn't all it's cracked up to be, or that it escaped from a lab in China. I mean, how many different things have they poo-pooed that actually ended up turning out to be true? And they are things that they have control over. I mean, a perfect example of that right now is that, at least in my heart, whether you were Democrat or Republican, at the end of the day, you still cared about making the country great. Sadly, I don't think that that's the case anymore. I think one party is determined to just try to get more power for themselves, and they don't care. The rest of the country be damned. Because, and you see that at our southern border, where the Biden administration is now selling pieces of border wall off to the lowest bidder, basically hauling it away just to booby trap things for President Trump so that he can't be as successful. When he comes back in, he's going to have to rebuy all of the material that's already paid for. And what does that do? The only thing that it does is punish his taxpayers. It's not going to punish President Trump. It's punishing us. And I think that's what's so outrageous about this administration, that continually lies to us and then tells us that they're there to help the people, yet they're going to sell off border wall that they know is going to be used in the coming months. I don't know. It's very frustrating to watch this. You'd think a peaceful transfer of power wouldn't involve trying to create these traps for the incoming president.
But they do. You know, you ask yourself, well, how much damage can he possibly do in the remaining 30 days? He can do a lot of damage. And we're already seeing that. I mean, it's absolutely incredible. If you look at the list of things that this administration, the outgoing Biden administration, has done, as it's exiting the door, you know, look at the hundreds of millions of dollars that it is sending to both Ukraine and Africa, while we've got people living in tents in Western North Carolina. I mean, that's a killer. And you look at just look at the pardons. I mean, I am just so appalled when I look at the list of some of the people who've been pardoned, and a number of them are people who have stolen from the American people. That's what's galling as well. So
one of them in Chicago that stole like tens of millions of dollars. I mean, it's incredible.
Yes. And so I'm going to make a bid. I'm going to start to make this my personal campaign. This is because I have a husband who grew up in the UK, who reminded me the system in the UK is, when you have an election, the team that wins has 1 week before they move in and the old team moves out. Why do we give ourselves 2.5 months for the old team, the ones that have been voted out, to create all kind of hanky panky? And I'll mention the last thing that goes on is what's called burrowing, which is all the political, not all, but a lot of the political appointees who were brought in by the Biden administration during this 2.5 months, they will be trying to burrow them in as permanent employees of the U.S. government. And unfortunately, what we know now is getting a job in the U.S. government is a job for life. It is virtually impossible to fire anybody who works for the U.S. government. So once these people manage to burrow in, it is extremely difficult to get them out. And the only good news is there was a story, I don't know if you saw this story, but it's actually thanks to Sean Spicer. Sean Spicer brought a lawsuit because he was made a part of one of these, I think it was like the Naval Academy board. And it was supposed to be like a 3-year appointment. And when the Biden administration came in, and those are supposed to be non-political, right? Those are not political appointments. You get on that board, you stay there for the full term. But the Biden administration threw him off. He sued. And the ruling was the Biden administration was actually allowed to do that. So Trump can now use this same precedent to start to get rid of some of these government workers. That's the only piece of good news here.
And he should. And I guess speaking while we're talking about pardons and burrowing and rats, we should probably talk about the January 6th committee, which is also making news. President Trump has promised on day one in office that he would start to review January 6th prisoners' cases. In many cases, these are people who are being held political prisoners without trial, some of them in solitary confinement. I mean, just unreal. So that's going on. As the House committee has done their review of January 6th, and Representative Loudermilk came out and said that this was a preventable event, which I think most of us believe was a preventable event. And even more so, says that Liz Cheney should be investigated for basically working with a witness, Cassidy Hutchinson, who was in the White House on January 6th. She was working for the chief of staff, I believe, Mark Meadows. She gave public testimony during one of the public hearings from January 6th. And now the allegations are that she was being coached along by Liz Cheney in all of this, who, President Biden, going back to pardons, is being asked to preemptively pardon, which I think is nonsense. Nobody needs to be preemptively pardoned. If they are guilty of a crime, they should be investigated no matter what. But this does not surprise me with Liz Cheney, one of two Republicans on the J6 committee.
Yeah. So that report actually just came out this morning, called the Loudermilk report. I think it doesn't go as far as many people hoped it would. And I think there's more that will certainly come out once President Trump comes into office. But it's a good start. And this is a good thing for, I know many, many people have a heart for the J6 prisoners who've been just so persecuted and so poorly treated, that, I think when we talked about what are my top three priorities for the new administration, certainly one of them is seeing justice for the J6 prisoners, seeing, I think certainly the majority, if not all of them, being pardoned. And also for us as the American people to know what is the truth behind the January 6th events. It certainly looks as if it was engineered by the Democrats as a way to paint Trump as having committed treason.
And a maniac, because Cassidy Hutchinson, if it's coming back to me, she was the one who said that she had it on good authority that he reached from the back of the beast to try to grab the Secret Service agent who was driving the car to turn the vehicle towards the Capitol. I mean, first of all, you have to think about how that would even look and how that would go. And it just seems highly implausible. And by the way, the Secret Service agent who was driving the car said that it never happened. So the testimony was debunked. And we hear that Liz Cheney was talking to her on a cryptid app to try to help coach her and to coerce her into testimony. But the thing that really irks me about this, Katie, is that there are people who watched the public testimony of January 6th who will listen to this woman and think she was doing the right thing and she's a good patriot and she's coming forward to tell the truth. They will never hear the retraction. They will never hear the Secret Service agent say that is not what happened. And forever, these people in their mind are going to have her statement filled with lies as their truth. That's what's so dangerous and should be dealt with harshly from these people who are making up stories, selling them, and half the population sees it because all they do is watch MSNBC.
It's no secret. The world's unpredictable. One moment, everything's fine, and the next, the power's out, and the cell towers are down. But with a satellite phone from sat123.com, you don't have to be cut off from the world. No matter where you are or what's happening, Sat123 keeps you connected. Whether you're deep in the mountains, on the road, or dealing with a natural disaster, your satellite phone will work when nothing else does. This is about being prepared. Sat123.com is family-owned, American-built, and focused on keeping you safe. They understand that in today's world, connection is more than convenience. It's essential. So here's the deal. Go to sat123.com and use code Katie for $25 off your first purchase. Don't get caught off guard. Stay connected. Stay prepared with Sat 1, 2, 3. I will say this, though. I think that the Trump administration learned a lot of lessons from its first go round. First of all, learned a lot of lessons about personnel, and just how evil people can be. But the second is, I think that he, and I think, they writ large, the team, have learned a lot also about the importance of getting the word out. It's not enough just to know what the truth is. You actually have to broadcast it. You've got to be very public. And you can already see how the people who are now part of the administration, now part of the team across the board, are being so much more vocal. I still remember vividly, because this touched us personally in a very big way. I think it was day one, the Trump administration came out with its moratorium on the so-called travel ban. They put a moratorium on travel from 7 countries, which the Obama administration had identified as countries that could not verify the identity of the people who were coming into this country. So they put this moratorium on travel. And the administration just immediately got hammered. And there was basically no pushback. There was no messaging. And that was when Sebastian got really,
your husband who got to for that.
He got really involved, and he reached out to the public affairs team and said, hey, I do media. Let me get out there and talk about this. And he had just some really wonderful, memorable moments in pushing back on some of the left-wing media. I'm going to have to put together a best of reel, because there were some great moments there. But I will just say that is such a difference from what you're seeing today, on Twitter across the board. We are seeing image after image of, RFK entering Congress, Elon Musk traveling through Congress, all the activities that they're doing. So I'm going to trust that when they get to the bottom of what happened on J6, they will know what to do to get that truth out to the American people. And I pray they do, because so many people had their lives ruined because of it, and suffered really unspeakable things in prison because of it.
Time away from their kids, time away from their families. You can't give that back. You really can't. All right, let's talk a little bit more about Congress, because, of course, the race to see who will be our incoming class of leaders in the United States House of Representatives is on. A lot of votes within the Democrat and Republican caucus to see who's going to lead what committee, who will be ranking members of which committee for the minority party. So AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, wanted to be the head of the House Oversight Committee. Now, I shudder thinking about that. But for the second time, she lost the first vote. There was a second vote. She lost again. And that's good, because I was not for AOC, Katie. I was for AOD, which stands for any other Democrat, but AOC.
That's great.
I know. I think we need to work that one in. So I think we might have dodged a bullet having AOC at the head, or at least as the minority head of the Oversight Committee.
And do you happen to know who got it instead of her?
I don't know. It was a man, though. I know that was running against her.
Okay.
Yeah. So somebody there is happier today because of it. Now, it's not because I'm hateful against AOC, but man, oh man, can you imagine the back and forth and what they'd be looking at on the House Oversight Committee? Oversight is so important, and we need someone who's going to be really serious about doing that job. I just don't know if it's her. I think she'd be trying to put little cogs in the wheel at every turn.
Yeah. Plus, I think she's just interested in putting on a show for herself.
Yeah.
I mean, she's into the theatrics. Now, I want to talk about another great way we're seeing this administration, this new administration. They're just not even waiting, right? It is like Trump is,
Jerry Connolly of Virginia is who she lost to. I just wanted to look that up for you. Okay, sorry about that, but I was looking it up so that we could figure it out.
Okay, but here's a scoop for you. I find that really fascinating, because he has been consistently the least newsworthy congressman, I think, in the entire House. He never does anything. But here's what's really interesting about that appointment. He is rumored to be stepping down within the next couple months. Yep. 2 days after he won his reelection. So his district, he's right here in the 11th, which is part of Fairfax County. 2 days after he won the election, he announced that he had advanced esophageal cancer.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, screw you voters is basically what he's saying.
Wow.
And if you look at him, you can really see it. He is looking really gaunt, has lost a lot of weight, which is very sad. I'm very sad for him. But he is going to be stepping down probably this spring, which means we may need to be campaigning for AOD. Because
there you go.
Anyone but AOC, because she could be that they said, let's give this to Jerry for a couple months, then we'll throw it over to you.
Yeah, that could be exactly what happened. Well, we'll see. That's interesting that he could be on his way out. Huh.
Yep.
All right.
So yes. I'd love to talk about, it's going to be shock and awe, I think, when Trump comes in. I think, so much has been kept quiet, right? There is so much happening behind the scenes with transition. They've been working on this for 4 years, really, for 4 years. And there is so much that's ready to go, that's in place. And what I think is so interesting is we're seeing it already. I mean, you're seeing the way foreign leaders are sort of deferring to Trump. They're, looking up to him. I mean, he is really the effective leader because Biden is
like he's already president. Absolutely.
Yeah, Biden's not doing anything. But I think what's also interesting to see is the fact that Trump got elected, I think, is making other leaders at the state level sort of more bold with what they're doing. And I'm just gonna mention Governor Glenn Youngkin, who has been great, and he's been out front on a lot of things. But two things that he's done that I don't think he would have done without, I know that he wouldn't have done without President Trump's leadership is, he has also said, Trump is saying when he's in office, they're going to withhold federal funding from cities or municipalities, whatever, that declare themselves sanctuary cities.
Right.
Governor Youngkin is saying the same thing as a governor in Virginia, which is very, very powerful. The other thing that Youngkin has just come out and said, no tax on tips in Virginia.
I'm loving this. I saw this headline this morning and I thought, this is really cool. And you know what? If we could get more of these governors to kind of line up with the messaging of Trump and Trump with the messaging of the states, think of what a powerful unit that could be. I mean, really a good way to spread your message. How is the reception to no tax on tips in Virginia? I mean, service workers must absolutely love it.
I think they will. I mean, it's interesting because we've got so many fights going here in Fairfax County. The thing that has actually really been sort of using up all the oxygen in the room is the fact that our Democrat Board of Supervisors wants to impose a meals tax. These guys are just like, there is nothing they won't spend money on. They won't allow audits of the budget. It's just spend, spend, spend. Now they're saying they need more money. So they want to impose a meals tax. So right now, that's what's getting all the energy. But I think it's really interesting that Youngkin just came out yesterday with this no tax on tips idea. So I think it's going to be really galvanizing. And again, I think it just really says a lot about how the Democrat Party is increasingly the party of the elites and the Republican Party is the party of the working class.
And it's where it needs to be. I think I would rather be that party all day long. All right. Just before we close here, I'll give you a little update on what's going on in California because we have some juicy rumors now starting to really fly. Everybody wants to know what's next for Kamala Harris. And according to reports, she's either thinking about running for governor or running for president in 2028. She runs for California governor. That election's in 2026. There's no way she could really do both, especially it would mean she lost California governor if she was going to run again in 2028. So what a lot of people are saying is that right now, Gavin Newsom and Kamala Harris are actually starting to shift teams a bit so that he starts to get himself ready to run for president in 2028 and she gets herself ready to run for governor in 2026. And the way things are set up right now, you've got about 12 Democrats that are going to have their names in the race, different levels of prominence and name recognition. But many of them, except for a few exceptions, I would say former mayor of LA, Antonio Villaraigosa, will stick in it and he'll challenge Kamala. But Katie Porter, Eleni Kounalakis, the lieutenant governor, Rob Bonta, maybe Javier Becerra, they're going to all step aside if Kamala Harris decides that she wants this. So part of the fuel of that rumor is that one of Kamala's top aides in her presidential campaign has just jumped ship and has gone to work for Gavin Newsom. So they're looking at this almost like, and these two are frenemies. They have operated like this in California before. It is so slimy. One decided to go for governor. One decided to go for Senate. They have always operated sort of in a snaky tandem with one another. So this would not surprise me if they are in the midst of switching staff so that she gets ramped up to do the governor's race and he gets ramped up for the presidency. They help each other along. Her name will clear the field for Democrats. And see what happens. Could be a coronation for Kamala, but there's a couple of strong Republicans who are looking at running. So if you can get one of those guys into a top 2 primary with her, we'll see what happens. It's going to be an interesting time the next couple of years in California, but I fear that she is going to bring her cackle back to our state.
I just would be shocked, honestly, if Democrats stepped aside, because she has proven herself not once, but multiple times now to be a terrible candidate.
Yeah.
I don't see it changing. If she's truly in a race with other candidates, I don't see her winning. So I just
Which is why I think they'd almost have to step aside. And I think that many of them, because they're all in that same camp, might. But there are Democrats like Villaraigosa who have become trying to position themselves in a more moderate way, who might stick it out and maybe actually might get some traction to take her on. But I don't know. We'll see. We'll just have to see what happens. I do think a lot of people will bow down and kiss the ring of Kamala.
I don't know. I also wonder about her potential to raise money, because we're seeing in the news that, some of her funders from this last time around are really, really upset with her. And they're asking, how did she manage to blow through so much money in such a short amount of time? So is she going to be able to raise the money that you need to run for governor of California?
It's a good question. And she did blow through $100 billion. I mean, that's ridiculous. And now we're hearing the stories that her team was lying about their internal polling the whole time. They knew they were losing, but they kept coming out saying they were winning. And that just kept opening up people's pocketbooks.
Yep.
Pretty incredible. So that's a recap of all the news that's happening. There's a lot of it. As we mentioned, everything happening at the speed of Trump. But guys, we really appreciate you. Make sure you pick up Katie's book. It's called Next Gen Marxism. You can get that wherever books are sold. And of course, you can check out our website, katiegorka.org. You can also find her on Facebook. Search for Catherine Gorka, and on Twitter at Gorka Katie. You can find me on social media too, Jennifer Horn Radio on Instagram and on Facebook, and at Jennifer Horn on X and on Truth. And keep those 5-star reviews coming. Share Happy Women with your friends. It means so much to all of us to keep this project going. You can find us and connect with us everywhere at SalemPodcastNetwork.com. Thanks for joining us. It's another episode of the Happy Women Podcast.